Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Come on in, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Hey, y'all. Hey, 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 hey. Come on in. Come on in. Hit that like button on your way in. We got DT in the building. I sure appreciate you. Thank you for coming through. We got Miss Chicago. Hey, Miss Chicago. Listen, listen. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Good to see you. And we got NBSR, Northern Born Southern Raised. Salute, salute. Appreciate y'all sliding through. We gonna cover some stuff today dealing with these riots, which seem to be spreading far and wide at this point, right? Not just contained in or reserved for LA. There's a lot of people in their emotions, when it comes to this. There's a lot of divided opinions, it seems, where the topic, it just got the street on fire, right? So we got now the protests have erupted all across the country over this illegal immigration status, and yet and still you don't see a whole lot of black faces in the crowd. And there's an entire percentage, I should say, or an entire particular group of people of melanated skin that believe that this is just not their fight. It's just not their fight. It's not your problem. It's not your fight. There are some that believe that because of the lack of support, the division between the black and the brown, there's a lot of different components. And then just the fact that, we don't even really want to just deal. We have enough of a past and enough opposition from the same powers that are dealing with the Latino community or the illegal immigrants, which cover, of course, more than the Latino community, but it is a big portion of that. If y'all would put a one in the chat, if my volume is okay, I would appreciate it. Um, Everything is good before I get off into the content. And yeah, we just gonna move right along, right? For those I have new subscribers, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And if you again would just tap that like button, I would be truly grateful, and share the stream if you can, or if you find value in the content. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the ones. All right. So I'm going to cam down when I show the videos. I'll be back, on and off camera till I get my rhythm, y'all. And yeah, let's get off into the content. So here's a big discussion when it comes to um, basically who are these protesters? You have people that actually live and reside in California that saying that the what the media is portraying does not really match what they're seeing. Um, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of convoluted messages being sent, right? And we have a lot of questions. So when you talk about Antifa, they basically, if or groups like them, they're basically paid actors. Okay, they're basically paid actors that present the image or convey the messages that there is such an outcry of opposition when it comes to how the illegal immigration status is being handled. And there's a lot of pushback on that. But we have new information actually coming to the surface where there's an FBI investigation that has been launched to find out who's funding these paid protesters. So let's go right on into it. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go.
coverage tonight, the FBI says it is now investigating the funding behind these anti-ICE protests in LA. Some lawmakers fear foreign influence and ideological donations are fueling the violence, and protesters are being paid. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joining us. These protests, as you know, they started organically following a massive ICE raid, but they have since taken a turn. You did some digging. Who is behind this funding?
So our researchers found there are two main organizations, Didi, involved in funding these LA protests: the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights and also the Central American Resource Center, both receiving government funding at the federal and also state levels. FBI Director Kash Patel announcing this week the FBI is investigating any and all monetary connections responsible for these riots. Following mostly peaceful demonstrations in response to several immigration raids in LA late last week, anti-ICE protests began escalating. Immigration officers assaulted, vehicles burned, and businesses looted. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons calling it pure chaos.
If you have to watch out for a burnt car, that isn't a peaceful protest.
David Carter, who teaches criminal justice at Michigan State, says funding protests is not uncommon and not all are violent. But the FBI's investigation won't focus on the act of funding, rather the intent behind the money given.
Funding to support illegal activities would be unlawful.
Our researchers found two organizations heavily involved in these protests: the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, who receives nearly $34 million a year in government grants, including private donations from Act Blue, a Democratic fundraising platform. Also, the Central American Resource Center is the second, receiving federal and California state grants along with private funding. President Trump speaking in Fort Bragg Tuesday, saying some protesters are being compensated.
They're incompetent and lawmakers.
A history professor at Cedarville University, Stanley Schwartz, compares what's happening in LA to the death of George Floyd in 2020. Organic, peaceful protests turning into organized, professional, and violent ones.
The conflict from the very beginning is citizens against law enforcement. So it becomes very difficult then to tamp down a protest as it's becoming more violent.
Now, Just the News also reports the Party for Socialism and Liberation, who has alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party, were also involved with protests. Carter also telling us the FBI will likely look at infrastructure first to help determine where the funding is coming from. Reporting for the National News Desk, I'm Jeff Harris.
So that's interesting, right? Let's pause for a moment and ask a question that too many folks are afraid to say out loud. And we ironically have a president that is not afraid to call it to task, to call it out, to say it out loud, and to actually authorize and push for an internal investigation to see why that may be true and where is this funding coming from. You know, this doesn't feel like an organic uprising anymore. Each day that passes by and goes by, it just feels to me more coordinated and rehearsed. And we've also seen this before, y'all. Remember back in 2020, during the George Floyd protests, we had reports that surfaced from cities like Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, and maybe others, talking about the outside agitators, people that are masked up, they dressed in black, showing up with fireworks, bricks, and plans. And you know what? They were tearing up some stuff. Absolutely, there was all kind of footage. I don't know if it's since been scrubbed off of the internet or not, but what I will say is that there was a lot of footage at one point where there was actual people, white people, right in the midst of all of these different melanated groups, just tearing up things, setting fires, putting holes in businesses, burning businesses, torching vehicles, just causing all kinds of damage to certain neighborhoods, to certain jurisdictions. These things we have to absolutely take into account and just say, you know what, we can't, this is not far-fetched. Now, Antifa is not a centralized group. It's basically more like a a loose collective of people whose tactics are to jump in where unrest is happening. But we're not going to make a mistake and assume that it is just for that purpose. There's always a bigger picture, and usually if you follow the money, you will find some type of recourse and answers at the end of the line, right? They also hide in, I want to mention, legitimate protests to turn up the heat, whether it's for media coverage, whether it's because they want more of a response from the citizens, hoping that it all spirals out of control and exacerbates to a point where, guess what? What we're seeing now, the National Guard has been called in, the Marines have been called in, and just to show there are different methods that these groups are being or have been called to task, right? Or have been recruited, basically hired. So just for an example, in 2020, a former Navy SEAL and a federal investigator openly claimed that professional provocateurs were being bussed into protests. That's really not uncommon, y'all. There were also Craigslist style ads that were offering compensation to join a protest movement. That is how it was listed in the Craig's ad, with no specifics on cause or organizations. And even recently, during the anti-ICE riots, what we're currently going through as we speak, there are reports, of course, that are surfacing of repeat protesters seen in multiple cities, multiple states, and within days, because this didn't start until this past weekend. We haven't even hit a week yet of these protests and these riots, but yet and still, it again is looking a lot more coordinated and rehearsed than normal. Now we're going to touch on a couple of different topics when it comes to these riots, and we're going to get into, of course, as to, outside of, is it chaos? Is the chaos organic or is it organized? But we also are going to talk about the voting patterns. We're going to touch on when people of melanated skin, Black people, FBA, people that consider themselves of FBA category, when they protested, they felt alone. So why would the community of the illegal immigrants and the people that support them expect support when they didn't get any, when all of these things were going on in the streets with the George Floyd, with even we can go back as far as the civil rights movement. It seemed to always have been a fight that has been basically isolated to the one group, right? And then, as the title states, burn flags, but you want benefits. I find it to be irreprehensible. And they telling you how they feel about the country, the people in the country, the laws of this country. I guess when the laws benefited them and their families and they were being coddled and taken care of, all was well. But now that we have a new president and his rules have changed. He said it before he became president that once he was elected, if he was elected, that was going to be his first course of action. And he stood 10 toes down on that. He doubled down on it, and he's executing exactly what he said he was going to do, provided he was reelected as president. But you have now, they're so mad and they're pissed off to the point where, okay, we'll wave our flag of our native lands and we're going to burn yours on your soil. But my question is why can't you go back to your country and wave your flag where it's country appropriate? Are those people taking care of you? Are those people providing things, opportunities, needs, businesses, homes, food, shelter, medical, citizenship for children that you have on this soil? Why is the fight so tough for you to stay here, but you have no problems with waving your native home flag on this soil? And then to add insult to injury, you're burning the flag of the soil that it belongs to. Now, we're going to talk about that, right? So I want to go into the next video. Salute to the chat. Salute to the chat. Y'all, I'm trying to get my rhythm going. So thank you for your patience on this. It's a lot of information I kind of want to touch on. And in my mind, it was going a lot smoother than it may seem on the live stream. But we gonna get it together, and we gonna cover what I wanted to cover, right? So we got beautiful Alexandra in the building. Always good to see you. Salute to Paul Thomas. Thank you for coming through. And for those that are watching from the bushes, salute, peace, and blessings. And we're gonna go right into. We're gonna do one more little. Because I believe receipts are important, right? So don't take it from me. I want to definitely provide another source where you can hear it from. And this is coming from the White House when it's talking about the paid protesters. So let's go, y'all.
The president said yesterday that paid insurrectionists were behind or were involved in the protests in Los Angeles. Does the White House have any more details about who they believe is paying these?
The president spoke about this last night when he returned from Fort Bragg, because frankly, the president has a lot of common sense. And if you look at some of the imagery that we have received from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and law enforcement who are on the ground, you will see boxes and boxes of very professionalized masks and rioting equipment being dropped off for these protesters. So it's a good question the president is raising, and one we are looking into, about who is funding these insurrectionists and these rioters and these protesters and these illegal criminals. And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail. So who is funding these illegal aliens who are coming in with this very professional riot gear? It's a question everyone in this room who cares about truth should be asking. And we encourage your help in trying to get to the bottom of that question. Indeed.
Thank you, Caroline. About Elon.
So they want any type of help and assistance that they can get, any type of additional information. But I'm just going to be honest and 100% transparent. I don't trust none of them at the end of the day. There's a saying where there are always, when it comes to politics and the political parties, in many instances, there are two wings of the same bird. So you always have to question and ask the why, right? And you wonder why, how and why would both sides benefit? I believe that you have the left side's perspective and story, you have the right side's perspective and story, and then somewhere in the middle there's some truth, right? And at the same time, it's like, okay, well, a lot of the information that we receive from the media, a lot of the footage, that's one of the few reasons I actually embrace social media, is because somewhere in the middle, you'll get some type of sprinkles of truth. You got citizens with cameras. Everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got a phone. There's usually cameras inside the phone that can't be controlled. And by the time it hits the internet, a lot of times it's gone viral before it's able to be successfully scrubbed off of the internet, right? So we have to keep that in mind. And just, again, I always say follow the money. Who is it that has the most to gain from paying protesters? Whatever reason they are paying them, whatever cause of action they are hoping to acquire at the end of the day, what is the why? What is the why? And if you follow the why, you follow the money, you will find some type of truth and something that's logically making sense with all of that. That's just my personal opinion. And we have the beautiful Alexandra. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support for the channel, which is super sticker. Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you kindly. I definitely am grateful. So we have, the representative of the White, or the spokesperson of the White House for the president, saying that, in numbers, she gave statistics of the arrests, how many of those were criminally charged with certain different, particular crimes and whatnot. And so it definitely is ringing true from so many different sources and avenues that yes, there is an interest and there is a large reason to believe that there are a lot of people that are being paid. And again, I want to know why. I just want to know why. So let's talk about the anger that the illegal immigrant community has at this point when it comes to being classified as illegal and saying that you got to go back home to your territory. You got, if you don't go through the due process here, I understand that some years ago with the last administration, they played by a different set of rules. They gave certain allowances that this administration is not tolerating. Again, one thing that I can say, though I don't agree with everything or maybe the delivery, what I will say is that Trump told you. He told you exactly what he was going to do. He gave people ample opportunity to voluntarily make the adjustments to go back or to do it correctly while you're here, if that avenue was provided. But he told you, he said, if you're here illegally, especially if you out here committing crimes, you gonna get apprehended and you gonna get sent up out of here. You may not have to go home, but you got to get the hell on from over here, right? So with that, we have the Pew Research shows that 36% of Latino voters supported Trump back in 2020. Now, even though you got Black Americans that voted 91% Democrat, standing against Trump's anti-immigration and anti-Black policies, it makes me wonder if that's one of the reasons that the Latino community feels a sense of betrayal, that they're not really getting the support from the Black community that they want to get. I really don't know, but what I will say is that they are hot and pissy mad right now, that they feel like they're in this fight alone and have the unmitigated gall to feel a sense of entitlement and to judge other groups of people for not supporting them and not openly supporting them and putting themselves in the fire. I want to show this video. And this is one of the reasons I think, and I believe that the Black community, and I will say, I'm going to go as far as to say collectively, right? Feel some type of way. And we're just going to go right off into it.
I'm fake. Oh, you do, dog. I'll spit on your plate. I'll put my dick on your plate, nigga. Fuck your family. Fuck your kids, nigga. I saw this. I can't sleep comfortably because of you.
He be fucking getting a whole fucking plate. He be fucking expecting us to give us a whole fucking shit. That there.
Do you go to Kava?
Yeah, you do, nigga. Yeah, you do. Act like I don't know your fucking face. Stop fucking playing. Fucking talking about, can I get a fucking discount? Can I get a fucking this? Can I get a fucking that? There.
Okay, I have to pause it because I just want to iterate that this is fair use. This videos actually edited to a certain degree to make it not violate community guidelines in YouTube. But what I want to note here is that you have amidst these officers, you have one Black officer, and that's exactly who they're directing these comments to. Okay, these statements that are super disrespectful, and they are really aiming to belittle him, but they're telling him exactly what they think of him and how they feel. Let's continue.
Point that shit at him right there. Point that shit at there right there.
He doesn't look like he go to college though.
Get going to no shit. Hell no. Hell no.
He ain't going to that cover.
What's your favorite thing to order at Kava?
Everything.
You go to.
Now, I want to notate something here. The sense of entitlement kind of baffles me a bit, right? I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, but it never ceases to amaze me that with everything in the past few years, and maybe longer, but it has been put in the forefront in the past few years as to exactly with the help of social media, the citizens being proactive in bringing this information to the platforms to bring awareness that yes, there is definitely something that stinks in the water, because people that have no vested interest come to this country. They are being handed everything that the average citizen of this country and oftentimes work a lifetime to achieve, such as real estate, such as successful businesses, or getting business loans. You have a lot of people that really need the help as far as SNAP benefits, as far as medical coverage, that can't qualify for little to nothing, including the veterans, right? Those that have served for the benefit of this country, for people to be able that live here to afford the luxuries, the peace, the safety overall in this country. And so the entitlement, it's like, okay, you come over here, you're so emboldened and embrazen to the point where you feel immunity and impunity to be able to talk to an officer of the law in such a fashion to burn the U.S. flag, which I was under the impression that was breaking a federal law, and you can be imprisoned for that. Yet and still, that's being done all over this country, wherever they're rioting, when they feel the need, and they don't have any consequences, or at least it doesn't seem as if they face the same consequences as we do. It makes me mad. Honestly, it pisses me off to see how people can be so disrespected, and then there's nobody really to stand up and to defend, or to at least say, you know what, you're dead wrong for that, and you can't do that here. And there are consequences for that action. Go back to wherever you felt it was so important to leave and come here, but yet and still you come here and you spit on the very soil that you sacrificed. And a lot of these people left a lot of their family members to come here, set up shop, and then with the hopes and idea of at some point they would send for them at a later date once they got situated and settled. They learned the loopholes of the laws, which means that they have to learn the laws to a large degree in order for these people to be able to navigate and maximize whatever purpose that they came here for in the first place in a very short amount of time. They knew that when they came under the Biden administration, that there was a possibility that the Democrats would not stay in office into this 2024 election, and they would have some decisions to make, right? But I don't want to play that again. I think for a shock factor, I could, but because it really kind of pissed me off, I would rather not. But I just wanted to demonstrate and show possibly why the Black community collectively are not in support of, and especially when it comes to illegal immigration. These people want, they say they don't, but you can tell that a lot of them are angry that they're not getting it, especially like on platforms such as TikTok, and where, you know, people can do their own little clips and vocalize, you know, exercise their freedom of speech. You can tell those that are sincere and passionate about what they're saying, and there's a lot of them that are very disrespectful to people of color, right? Or Black people, I should say, or FBA. Now, when we had George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, I have a question. Did Black people show up for those in support of other Black people? It's just a question. Personally, from what I saw if it wasn't more foundational Black Americans or people that look like them in support, it would be the white next in line. Not Latinos, not the brown, quote unquote, community. I heard a lot of Black people are lazy, Black people are disrespectful, Black people are unappreciative. Nothing really positive coming from the community when Black people are spoken of, when they're the topic of conversation. It's all derogatory. But yet and still you have them that seem, or many of them, especially the ones that are here illegally or are attached to those that are here illegally, in the same predicament, in the same boat. The only thing that I haven't seen so far are the water hoses and the dogs. Okay? Now, when you talk about the civil rights movement and how there was such a protest for justice, we asked for policy, not permission. A lot of the illegal immigrants have such a sense of entitlement that they're brazen and bold about it. And I've never seen anybody go on into another country and speak to the native citizens of that particular country and deliberately call them names, tell them that they didn't deserve, basically in so many words, they didn't deserve to be there. They didn't deserve to be there. They were lazy. They were unappreciative. They were ignorant. And all of the other different things that have been said about people of color here that were born here or that are citizens through due process here. And yet we're being asked to hit the streets. But this one feels different because this is one of the few times that Black people or FBA is not the direct point of attack. And so it's not very often that people can look from the outside in instead of looking from the inside out, from a whole different perspective and position, to the point where we can look and ascertain the similarities as well as the differences and disparities. It's very enlightening in some aspects. And it also reveals to me that those that are in power, even though they have the same MO and pretty much the same objective to stay in power, to stay powerful and power filled, the treatment is just a little bit different. Because if you have Black folk out there burning the US flag, I don't have to describe to you the difference in the treatment and how that would be addressed compared to how it's being addressed with illegal immigrants, as if to say that they have more grace to be here than the people that actually built this country, to afford them the luxury of even being here, when the resources are taken and kept from the very people that pay taxes and that make the sacrifices on a day-to-day basis, be away from their families to provide. And yet and still, where are those resources going? Those resources don't stay in house. And the very people that they're going to have the nerve and the audacity, and I'm not speaking of everyone, but if it doesn't apply, let it fly. They're saying that Black people are lazy. Well, how is it that you're getting what you need? Because the wealthy aren't going to give it to you, not off of their backs, not out of their bank accounts. Hell, they're too busy. A lot of them find legal ways to cipher the monies from the working class and from people to get up and go to work every day in order to fatten their pockets. And these are just my opinions. These are my beliefs. The money's got to go somewhere, and it's not staying in the community, right? But the disregard and the there's a word I'm looking for, undermining of the importance of Black people in this country. And yet we have people that have no skin off their backs and that have probably haven't been here long enough to even get adjusted to how we eat in this country. Like they have that sense of entitlement that that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to get. How, Sway? How? Now, I'm going to show this video. I got to find it, y'all. Hold on a second. And I'm going to let this play probably while I'm doing some commentary. We're going to watch a little bit of it. But when I talk about grace being given, we're talking about the National Guard and the Marines. But the footage that is being given, whether it's paid protesters or it's authentic and it's organic, people out here protesting or rioting, because I think we're way past peaceful protests, there still is a lot being done to damage. I don't even know what LA looks like right now. I really don't. We're looking at what, day 5, day 6? And this is around the clock, right? And I want to share this. Hold on, y'all. I gotta get my life together. So we gotta remove that one. Hold on. That's it. Okay. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Okay, so hey, Bevan. Good to see you. He says 330 have been arrested and 134 have criminal felony charges and was wanted. That's what the speaker of the White House, she gave out statistics, and I think that's what she was referring to as well and specified. But thank you for that. And so you're looking at almost half, almost half. And people are wondering why there is such a discord and a division. Why can't they get the same treatment? But I digress. I digress. They're burning cop cars, setting them, there we go, just setting it on fire. I don't see no dogs. I don't see no water hoses, not to even distinguish the fire. People throwing rocks at law enforcement vehicles. People are masked up, defacing businesses. This is in broad daylight. But this is what they think of the very country that they probably, and they don't look like none of them starving. How are they getting the resources in order to maintain? Like it was said, where are they getting the masks from? The artillery or the items to be able to deface LA, to set things ablaze. And then you have the governor of California saying that this is Trump's fault. This is Trump's fault. All of the people that are over here, I guess that was his fault too. When you have the previous administration threatening to sue the governor of Texas because he chose to uphold the law, the immigration laws, by enforcing the ports of entry, saying that unless you go through the ports of entry, you will not be allowed to come into this state. All he did was choose to uphold laws that were already in place, not to create more, not to do his own thing, not to do what he wanted to do. Remember, there were so many people that stood to gain generational wealth. The charter buses, the owners of the hotels got paid with taxpayers' money via the government to bring people into the sanctuary cities, to house them, to feed them. What do you think they did as soon as they hit the soil? They were procreating so that their children would automatically become natural citizens of this country. This is what they think of this country.
Right. Yeah, it did get out of control with the overpass on Spring Street, with the CHP vehicles, with the Waymo vehicles, like you said, over in Olvera Street area. But what we're seeing now these are anarchists. These are not law-abiding citizens.
And because if you look at how successful they are and how they're hanging around, not just committing the crimes, but hanging around to watch the crimes play themselves out, that would be the first reason I would ask or question how much of this was actually real and authentic. When did you ever rob a bank and then sit up in the bank and count the money? I ain't never seen nobody do it. They get the hell on up out of there. Paul Thomas said 1%. I would say 0.5, but I ain't never seen it. And yet and still they speak as if we are wrong for not supporting them. Now, I'm going to pause this for a moment. We may come back to that, but I will want to show this particular video of this woman making a very true statement that I hadn't thought of, but I want her to tell it for herself. Shout out to the chat.
Latinos, you know, us Black people not protesting with you is keeping you all alive and safe, to be honest with you, because this present administration is already ready to declare martial law. And the one thing that we have learned from history is that racist white folk get agitated if they see a group of Black people marching and protesting something. Definitely. Do you know the magnitude of danger it would put you all in if we out there? See, history has already proven how the white power structure feels about Black people protesting. I've done numerous videos showing what happened during the civil rights movement. See, they haven't pulled out water hoses and dogs in a very long time. But see, you don't know what this president is capable of. And I'm telling you now, you complaining talking about you want us out there with you. No, you don't. Because the one thing that white America hates more than Latino people is Black people. History has shown it. So again, we're going to keep praying for you. But you don't really want us out there. Because I'm telling you, if hundreds of thousands of Black people get together out there in them streets with you, you're going to be in danger, baby.
Now, I want to play that to provide another perspective, because I intentionally showed the footage prior to this in length to demonstrate in broad daylight just how much these people, how comfortable they are, how lackadaisical and in stride they are. They're not rushing, they're not running. Typically, you got throwing bikes on top of cop cars and then leaning over the bridge to make sure that, you know, it did exactly what they wanted them to do. Good afternoon, Dr. D. Thank you for coming through. Peace and blessings, right? I appreciate you. Phoenix Rising is in the building. Thank you, pretty lady, for coming through as well. She says the script they are using for fear-mongering is astounding. Exactly. Come on with it. Come on. Let's go. Catherine Jenkins, peace and blessings to you as well. Technically, California was absorbed in 1840 from Spain and never signed the Declaration of Independence. So there is that. Also tells me there are naturalized Spanish people there for generations. Now, I will agree with that to an extent, right? And the only reason I say to an extent is because I have to do my due diligence and my research before I speak in fact, right? So I can't say that I totally agree, because that part I'm not 100% sure about. But what I did learn was that originally in 1840, Mexico basically sold sold California, which is now known as California, right? And they undersold them for a low amount. Now, the naturalized Spanish people, definitely there's generations there, as everywhere. They're everywhere, you know. They're an integrated part of our society in this country. The part that I want to emphasize, though, is that there is a process. Unless you're born here, you are no matter what your bloodline is, you are automatically considered a citizen and expected to follow the rules of the land, right? And that goes for anybody. So we can separate the two at that point. But what I will say, in addition to that, is that, okay, so let's look at the history of it all. But in 2025, in the month of June, on the 12th day, 5 or 6 days in, they're tearing it up. So at the end of the day, they destroy it. Then what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Now, people have their own opinions as far as should Trump have intervened and called in the National Guard. Therefore, the Marines came later once the National Guard seemed not to be able to solely get everything under control. But if I'm not mistaken, he had a conversation with Governor Newsom, and Governor Newsom made the remark that things were out of control, or they were getting out of control, right? So I don't know. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, the topic, though I'm covering several topics today, the one that I really want to emphasize is people's reason for not really supporting this movement. Now, the first reason, which to me, what's understood shouldn't have to be explained, is the fact that we're talking about illegal immigrants. Illegal being the operative word. We're not talking about migrants. We're talking about illegal immigrants, right? People that are not here through due process, they're not here legally. And like Bevan stated, that out of the arrests, you're looking at least 75 to 80% of those people actually being criminals. You have a lot of countries that do not and will not even accept their citizens back to their country once they hit this soil. What does that say? And yet and still now it's become our problem. Who's going to take care of those people? They can't work legally. Half of them, you probably don't even know their true identity. But do we even care at this point? Now the current administration seems to care, because they want them to go back. It's time to go home, or time at least to get from here, if you haven't done it legally and gone through it through the due process. So that's what I wanted to take from what she was saying, is that, guess what? It would make it worse. Even if we did choose to support you, it would just complicate the entire situation. But what sense would it make for that support to be enacted? Because basically we would be supporting an illegal cause, an illegal purpose, breaking the laws of this country when we're supposed to be lawful, right? In theory, right? No problem. Thank you so much for coming through. Absolutely. And have a good day. Have a good day, Miss Catherine. So I do want to, this is not going to be a terribly long live, but I just wanted to come through. There's when we start talking about, I wanted to make a really quick comparison between civil rights and what's going on right now, because there's been some talk and some conversation, regarding, okay, well, let's do a comparison with the civil rights movement, and this is 2025. But to me, I believe, even though there are some similarities when it comes to how things are being handled, Um, People are fighting for a cause, even if it's a different group of people. They're still fighting for a cause. They still are willing to protest and riot for that cause. And I do believe that both groups during both movements, though separate and they have separate agendas, it was still for the progression of their group of people. What each group feels and felt like was going to be in the best interest to move them forward and to progress them as a people, as a group of people collectively, right? Now we got, hold on, we're gonna, Miss Chicago says, I'm just asking, has anybody heard a reporting on how many people got hurt or died during this peaceful protest that the news is making it out to be? Because it looked like a riot to me, just my opinion. I've been looking, Miss Chicago, I don't know if anybody else in the chat, maybe Paul can chime in on that. He's very astute when it comes to the news and current events. I haven't seen it be called a peaceful protest. The only time I heard it was called a peaceful protest was day one, before they broke out and they started tearing up everything. At that point, I've been hearing it be referred to as a riot. Now, I don't know. I'm not really sure about, does anybody know if anybody has passed away directly connected to the rioting? Maybe the people in the chat can chime in on that as well. But that's a great question. I think one of the purposes of something like this, especially when you start talking about paid protesters and people being placed there intentionally to exacerbate and make the situation worse than a peaceful protest, in my opinion, to just make everything worse, the first thing that comes to my mind is, if it's being intentionally implemented, then why are they considering or trying to elevate everything to the point where they're testing out martial law, police states? If you know, when it comes to the concept of the 15-minute cities. If not, you might want to do some investigating on that. When you talk about the NWO, and how they're trying to usher in one system for the entire world to go off of and to be cohesively integrated into one system and not everybody have their own separate laws. Is this part of that process? But what I was going to say is that I think that no matter what, it is to sow discord, to keep everybody divided. I always picture in my head, there's a painting, and I don't know the name of that painting, and I don't see it a lot. But sometimes I'll go to like real deep content creators pages, and every blue moon it'll pop up because it's so powerful. So this painting is a table, and it's got some very astute figures sitting around the table in suits, top hats, playing a board game. I don't know if it's chess, I can't remember, but they're sitting around the table convening, and the legs of the table are the lower class, the citizens. They're bending down, and the whole concept is, if they stand up, it is game over. To me, that promotes unity. And if the people unify, no matter what their color, creed, or history is, culture, all of that, if we were just able to put our differences to the side for the greater good of the cause, of the big cause of evening the playing field, it would require unity. And they've been so successful in always sowing confusion, and always sowing discord, and always sowing division. They can do that by hate. They can do that by implementing hate on people's differences, right? And so I definitely just, that is one of my biggest dreams, is to always try to mentally envision unity. It just seems so far-fetched in the times that we're living in and what they call real life. Those are just my thoughts on that. It's just my thoughts. I know in the civil rights movement, there was organization in the protest. There was peace in the protest, at least on the citizens' part or the protesters' part. Law enforcement, I believe, in a lot of instances abused their power, just my personal opinion. And they overreacted in a lot of instances because they didn't want peace. They didn't want unity. They didn't want things to change. They wanted things to stay the same so they could continue to benefit at the behest of the slavery movement staying just that way. They didn't want to see a revolution. They didn't want to see people ascend. They didn't want to see the truth come out. The protests had leadership. They were very strategic. I don't see a lot of strategy in what's going on right now. I see a lot of emotion. I see a lot of acting. I see a lot of reacting. I see a lot of entitlement. Back in the civil rights movement, every single solitary thing that was given was earned 10 times over. To the point where we're in 2025 and there are a lot of people in the Black community that you will hear reverberate and say over and over and over again that they have to work 10 times as hard to be equally acknowledged as their counterparts. So in a lot of aspects, it didn't go away. Racism just evolved. Depression just evolved. It shifted to look like something else, but still yield the same results. Today, no agenda, no strategy, and definitely no unity. Right? So that's pretty much, let me see, I think there's one more, give me 1 second, y'all. Yeah, there is one other video I wanted to play, and then I can drop the link if anybody's interested. If not, we can go ahead and close on out and then go on with our day. But I did want to show this.
So yesterday, Bernie Sanders held a rally, a May Day rally in Philadelphia. It was a rally for workers, migrant workers, for immigrants, basically anybody who was against the administration and Trump, right? Amongst the thousands of people that were there in protest, thousands of white people, by the way. Thousands of white people, by the way, right? There were about 70 people arrested. Guess what? Majority of those people that were arrested were the few Black people who were out there. Although I have personally stressed time and time again, please do not go out into the roads, don't go in the streets, do not protest, because I have a feeling you will be sought after. Although I have preached this multiple times on my platform, there's still some of us who feel passionately enough and want to go out there. And so they did. And because of that, they were arrested.
Aaron, a lot going on behind him. Yeah, a lot going on, Fred, right
Do you
now.
think that
Things kind of took a little bit of a turn.
was a coincidence?
Some of the protesters got a warning twice
Who
to
you
vacate
see
so they can
is
open up
being walked
Broad
through
and Vine. And you
in
can see
zip
some are now
ties.
being put in zip ties and being led away over to a bus that's over there.
There's another arrest.
What's going on right now?
That's not the same lady.
Do you have anything to say? No.
Solidarity.
Is it worth it to make a stand like this?
Solidarity forever.
The reporter asked her, was it worth making a stance like this? And her response was solidarity forever. Where are the white allies? Where are they? Why weren't they shielding her? Why did y'all let her get them? Not even just her. Why did y'all let them get arrested so easily? Why wasn't any commotion being made? Where's the solidarity? Where is it? And this is why I don't want any of my people, I don't want anybody who is of color going out there. I don't want you out there. I don't want you out there because we will say solidarity. We will ask for peace. We will ask for union. But then when we expect for it to be returned, crickets. Fucking crickets. And don't tell me, oh, why you gotta make everything about race. That crowd was filled with thousands of white people. Thousands of white people. Yet they managed to find 2 black women to put in zip ties and to parade in front of the reporters and the cameras. Stop playing in my face.
Hold on, y'all. You know, my channel is, let me just say this real quick. Everybody has a system of beliefs that they go by, that they believe in, that they consider to be their truths. Everybody's road that they travel is different. Everybody's opinionated. Everybody has an opinion. And my platform, I like to show all sides. They're not speaking for me. Everybody doesn't represent me. I represent myself. And everybody's entitled to the way that they feel and what they believe based off of their personal experiences. I want to make that disclaimer, right? Now, with that being said, I'm going to say this. We don't owe silence, but we also don't owe support to movements that belittle, insult, disregard, or overlook, as well as disrespect us or fail to stand with us when it's our time of need. A lot of foundational Black Americans believe that they are the blueprint. There is a real heritage and legacy of real resistance. And in a lot of people's opinion, what's going on right now doesn't align with that. What I would like to say, Ms. Akemi, is be smart, stay informed, and protect your energy. Now, I'm going to drop the link. I'm not going to give it a long time because people, they pretty much know if they want to come up and have a voice or not. You're more than welcome as long as we're having a respectful dialogue. Anyone is welcome. And then we're going to close out. I appreciate everybody coming through. You know, I'm also going to put this back up here and play it. Hold on, I gotta, okay. Because this isn't solving the problems. Now, there are times when peaceful protest doesn't seem to solve them either. Depends on the climate we're living in, the narratives that are being pushed, the objectives that are wanting to be achieved at the end of the day. They want to keep us at one another. If you tear down your own house, where do you have to go? And how does it affect the elite? They look at it as a sport, as a game, as a spectator's sport, in my opinion. And it just seems like they get what they want time and time again. Because as long as we stay divided, as long as we stay separate, as long as we continue to disrespect one another based off of the color of our skin or the origin of our heritage, they're going to always sit back and laugh. They say war makes people rich. There are different types of war. From what I'm looking at, this looks like a war within itself. May not be against an entire country, at least yet. But let's remember something. This started in LA, and it's spreading through a lot of the other major cities throughout this country. As we speak, it's growing. I don't have all the answers. I am reacting to the information that is being provided, trying to sort something out that makes sense, being solution oriented is different from being perfect. Perfection is not my lane, nor do I want it to be my lane. But I do always seek and hope for solutions, and I value peace. A lot of times, however, peace does not bring change. A lot of needed change. So I'm going to give it another minute, and then we're going to go ahead and close out. I appreciate everybody coming through. Absolutely do. We got Mel Dub in the building. Hey, Brother Mel, good to see you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the engagement in the chat. I appreciate having a respectful dialogue, even if you agree to disagree. That's all. That's welcome. That's perfectly fine. I appreciate to see the new names in the chat. Thank you so much for the support, for the super chats. Appreciate you. Just making sure everything else is good. And with that being said, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get on up out of here. So I hope everybody has an amazing day. Bless somebody. If it ain't yourself, bless at least one person. I want to say this, and I know this is kind of off topic, but I was driving. I had an incident happen the other night with my son that was actually life-threatening. And anybody that says there isn't a God, I'm going to argue them up and down, because God absolutely saved me and my son the other night. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And for a moment, I found myself, even though it was a scary situation, I started to think negatively for a brief moment. And then the day I went out to run errands and I saw this man with a sign, whether it was true or not, I could see it in his face that it was his truth. And his sign said, I need help. My wife has terminal cancer. And I gave that man everything I had, every ounce of cash I had on me. And I appreciated the reminder because I'm a survivor. And it immediately reminded me that even though I went through what a lot of people hopefully have not and won't go through, that his story wasn't my story to tell. And I bring that up because, first of all, I wanted to say it. And then second of all, I just wanted to remind myself and anybody that is upon the sound of my voice that it's not always about us. So when I say bless somebody, the easiest way to get out of yourself is to help somebody else, even if it's just for a moment. And be thankful. No matter what your story is looking like, if you think it can't always be worse, keep living and keep thinking along those lines, and it will prove you right. Help somebody today do something. Even if it's a stranger. And in my case, that stranger blessed me more than anybody connected to me today so far. And with that being said, shout out to the chat. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.